let's get going. So thank you all for attending this IGEL Community Meetup. We're going to have a lot of fun. And I don't know if you put security and fun usually in the same conversation, but when you're dealing with our presenter today, our guest today, Mathias Huber, anything we do is always fun and very informative. So I'm really looking forward to this. He's one of my favorite presenters at IGEL and that I've sat through in a long time. So really looking forward to this. Sebastian is actually the one that thought of this. So Seb, can you maybe talk a bit about what we plan on doing today?
Yeah, sure. I will not talk that much about what we will do because Matthias is the star of the show today, but I will tell about the reason why I asked Matthias to join our session. The reason, there is not one reason, there are a couple of reasons, but I will start with a short example of what security means to me and why it means a lot to us that to have Matthias today on our side. I just bought a new smart lock for my new house for the front door, and honestly, it doesn't feel that good to know that something related to IT can open my door, something that related to a smartphone, to an app can open my door. And the first thing I was checking is there a firmware update? Is there something I can do to enhance the security? Can I add some additional security levels? And that's, I guess, a good handover to what Igeros is doing and the IGEL UMS is doing the last couple of years, decades more or less, is not to be just a tool, not being just an operating system or management system that delivers a function. The main focus is to be secure. And in the second step, hopefully giving some additional services to our end users and partners. I guess it was, Matthias, correct me, on the QBR in Amsterdam, on the airport hotel in where you begged our C-level.
Yes, you remember that, right?
Yeah, I couldn't forget it. So Matthias begged for a security officer role in the, not being him becoming that role, but to get a role about someone who's take care about security inside of our company, inside of our product. And it worked. Matthias is still there and is occupying that role. So I'm pretty happy about that. And that's the reason why we're talking about you and about our product security in our community that often. It's just fair to invite you speaking about what you are doing in the, let's say, behind the scenes.
Thank you for the invitation. Yes, I'm very much a backroom boy because, you know, security in daily work is usually quite boring. You you file tickets and you write reports all day. But sometimes I can get out there and talk to people, yes.
We love it. We love it. So let's, so we have a few more, I have to do it, but we have a few more slides in case you're new to IGEL, IGEL community. We do a lot of these events. So we have a few upcoming. We have a really great one on unified communications in June coming with Lars and Udo, two IGEL pre-sales folks and advanced services guys. So please attend that. We're also going to do a follow-up one in the German language too. So whatever this says here is basically the same thing as here. And then that's actually going to be in an hour and a half web meetup. The second half, we're going to have Ron Nair from the IGEL community, one of our SEs in America, come on and talk about the IGEL community GitHub and the great things he's doing there with custom partitions. So the June meetup is really going to be great. A lot of deep tech, from custom partitions to unified communication, two very hot topics. We also are working on putting together a webinar with the Login BSI folks. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be sometime in June. So keep your eyes open. In July, I'm really excited. We have a Citrix C2P Rody coming on, and he's going to talk about user experience from IGEL OS to remoting protocols. And really looking forward to that. Rody is a CTP, an expert on RDP, and an expert on remoting technology. So let's see what he has to say. I don't know yet, and I'm quite excited about it. And then, as Sebastian mentioned a little bit ago, we're going to have another one of our internal security guys come on and talk about how he manages security within IGEL. So, for example, Doug, you can't do this. Doug, you can't do that, which is usually I'm the victim. Not usually, I mean, but I have crossed the line a few times, I must confess. So that said, please join us for more information about the events, igel.com/events. Of course, we have a bunch of different sites. We record, yeah, there you go. The website, IGELcommunity.com. Just go to IGELcommunity.com, click the menu, and you'll end up at all these different places. And last but not least here, watch on demand. All these meetups we do, all these videos we're doing. Every Tuesday now we have Tech Tip Tuesday, where Sebastian's doing 1 or 2 new videos that we're posting on online. So definitely check that. I think you guys will really love it. So videos.igelcommunity.com, great place for just deep dive tech videos. There's no marketing, no fluff, pure tech. We love it. We should get a big sign or a sticker thing, pure tech. And I'm very happy to say this is our 1-year birthday for the IGEL Community Meetups. Sebastian, did you know this?
Honestly, I was looking when was the first one, but I didn't thought about the fact that it was 1 year again. No, 2 years.
Yeah, it was 1 year. I just realized this, and I thought we would have an entire slide about it. So happy birthday to us for successfully getting through 1 year without leaving our homes and doing these things each and every month.
Do we get a gift, free
really,
vaccine, or?
We get nothing. We get nothing. We get Mathias Huber, which is more than we can ask for, right? So last but not least, please, Matthias is really great. He's going to go through a session. He has put together a bunch of great stuff. But then when he's done, we're going to have open Q&A. So please, if you want to ask him questions, use the Q&A piece. You see the arrow pointing down. Do not use chat, although we'll be monitoring chat. But put the questions in Q&A, please. So on that note, I will close and stop, and I will turn it over to Mathias Huber. So I can't be happier. I'm so looking forward to this. Matthias, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Doug. Thank you, Sebastian, for having me. And thanks for everyone attending. So I prepared some slides with some things I'd like to say and explain, point out. Then also Seb and Doug have collected some questions beforehand. I'd like to answer these, but then of course, we can have an open Q&A. And please understand if there are some things that I cannot talk about, it comes with the security domain. On the other hand, if your organization is an IGEL customer, we might be able to talk about it under NDA in a different context. But this being a public event, I'll have to say stop at some point. Okay, I'll try and share my slides now. So that's that. Can you see my slides, Sebastian?
Yeah, it's there.
Okay, welcome to Product Security. And I'm Mathias Huber, the Product Security Manager. I'm in Augsburg, Bavaria, Germany, where our R&D center is, our main R&D center. We're branching out. We're growing and we're branching out. So, what kind of title is the Product Security Manager, you may ask? Well, what most people know is that there is a Chief Information Security Officer in any decent company, the CISO. And that's my very esteemed colleague, Andreas, who'll be on, I think, later this year. Don't miss him. He has some very good stories about security. And the CISO's job is all the IT systems inside the company that help the company do their work. And not only the systems, it's also organizational issues, processes, how do I go about setting up a new server and everything. So that's the CISO's domain. And now IGEL is not your usual company that sells bananas or something. We build and sell software. And that's why we also have a product security manager. And my domain is the security that goes into the IGEL software products and the processes that we use to build them. Besides that, we also have a couple of more team members. We have a security analyst in Linux. We're looking to hire someone for a similar role for the Java team. And we have a legal and compliance manager in the US. So that's our small security team, which we are going to grow this year. Okay, there's something that we need to talk about. What version of IGEL OS are you running? Because we've had a critical vulnerability found. And we do publish those as our in-house advisories. They're called ISNs, IGEL Security Notices. And this one is ISN 2021-01. And it's a remote command execution vulnerability, and that's pretty bad. So in effect, there's a vulnerable part on some Igelos installations, if you've activated it, that will allow an attacker to connect from the network and run commands as root. And that's about as bad as it could possibly get. And it's really a double facepalm issue. But well, it was found and we fixed it. So the important thing for you is, have you updated your Igelos yet? What's your Igel software in recent years? And it has a CVSS score of 9.8. And many of you will know that these only go up to 10. So it's really bad. Someone even turned it into a ready-made exploit for the Metasploit system. And here is the full URL. And I think Sebastian will share the slides later, where you can read up more details about this. We fixed it a while ago. So if you're on the current Igelos 11, update to 11.04, 270, or any of the 11.05 versions. Some people are still using the Igelos 11.3 branch. Update to version 11.3, 620 on your. And if you're on Igelos 10, upgrade to Igelos 10.06, 220 on your. Important reminder, check your Igelos versions and update, please. Okay, a little preview of what's coming up. You know that the writable partitions of Igelos, where we have the settings and, for example, the Firefox profile, are encrypted. And we're coming up with a new encryption scheme in Igelos 11.06 that will come out in August or September this year. And it has a new intermediate layer that will allow various ways to unlock the system. Encryption will be optional because we have a very wide variety of customers. Some say, leave me alone with all this encryption. I only want the thing to boot quickly. And the others are very security aware and they want disk encryption. So for the first time, it will use a passphrase that the user will need to enter before they can do anything with the system. That will be in OS 11.06. Later, you will also be able to manage the passphrase from UMS, which of course makes sense because you do not want to visit all those thin clients in person. And in a later stage, we will use the Trusted Platform module TPM, if your hardware has one, to store the keys. So that's a little outlook. There's more to come next year, but that's still some time off and I can talk about that. Now, we're looking for a security engineer for Java applications. This is a full-time position, either in our R&D center at Augsburg. We're opening an R&D center at Karlsruhe as well. So maybe that's closer to where you live. You can also work in Bremen or you can work remote. Here's the link to the job advert. Maybe you want to apply. Maybe you know a Java person who's good at security or a security person that's good at Java. Drop them a link. That would be very much appreciated. We need some more hands in the security team. Okay, and now some questions have been shared with me beforehand. I'd like to go through these. Sebastian, anything that has come up so far?
Yes, there's a really good question coming in the chit chat. So just in case, if you wouldn't mind to put your question in the question and answer section, that would definitely help us because we can track them a little bit better. But there was a great question coming from Fred. Is there a way to get email alerts for such security vulnerabilities?
Yes, there will be in June. I'm working on it. Yes, as every decent vendor has a security announcement list, we will have one as well. It's no good expecting of people to look it up on the website all the time. You will be able to describe 2 security alerts next month.
Perfect.
Okay, so your questions. How can you report any security-related behavior? So that's assuming it's about an IGEL product. You can make just the usual support ticket and let IGEL support staff know it's a security ticket. Then they will forward it to the security team. Or you can directly mail security@igel.com. And if you want to have complete confidentiality, we can exchange our PGP GPG key. I'll do that on request. So yes, talk to the security team. That's what we're here for. Where is IGEL getting the CVEs? So I assume you want to know how we learn about all those vulnerabilities against the many hundred packages that we have in our software. We use OpenVAS, which is the open source edition of the Greenbone security appliance. And we use a tool from the great Open Web Application Security Project, OWASP. Look up their website. They have great documentation. They have cheat sheets. And you can read up about a lot of things that you've always wanted to know. How do I store passwords and things like that? How do I do encryption? Is really, really good material. And it's very, very accessible. And they have a tool that's called Dependency Checker that we use for our Java projects. It knows all the dependencies. And then it checks the versions of these dependencies against a CVE feed. And our feed that we use in OpenVAS comes from NIST, ZBund, which is the federal organization in Germany, and DFNCERT, which is the German university's computer emergency response team. So that's how we do that. So far, we do not register our own CVEs for issues in IGEL products, but in the future, we will try to do that so that you can find IGEL advisories in your usual CVE feeds. But that's a plan for the future. That's just a further step along the road to security maturity. And this is again where we publish the IGEL security notes. But we'll make you aware when you can subscribe to the security mailing list, which is, of course, much more convenient. Is IGEL able to provide pen test perform against your products? Yes, we have an annual pen test of all of our products. But as this is really confidential material, we only share it on a per customer basis under a non-disclosure agreement or NDA. So this is usually when we're acquiring new customers, they want to evaluate how secure are our own operations, how secure are the products, that we let them have a summary of the pen test report and also a remediation plan, how far we have come in remediating all those issues. If you are a new customer, you can ask your IGEL sales or pre-sales contact. Which kind of security certifications is IGEL already working on? So we have a very small certifications, which is UK Cyber Essentials. That's the bare minimum that lets us do business with UK government. Of course, we have ISO 9000 group and also ISO 40,000 group for environmental things. But security-wise, we're working towards ISO 27001. So that's a very popular European and international standard. I know that there are American standards as well, but this one is more international. And we are planning the audit for the last quarter of this year. So that's the overall plan.
May I ask you a question? Because it came in a private chat room.
Okay.
It relies a little bit to that topic. I'm not sure if you can answer that because it might be a huge answer to give. But what means, I mean, especially for the German-speaking part, I guess, from Europe. Yes. But what means BSI to you? Is it something we are looking for? Okay. Is it certification? Can you give us some insight on that?
So that is das Bundesamt für die Sicherheit in der Informationstechnik, not to be confused with the British BSI, which is the British Standards Institute. So there's some opportunity for a mix-up there. So this is the German authority that makes the guidelines for German federal agencies in IT security. So if you're the German Agency for Employment, the German Agency for this and that, you have to abide by their rules. And they have published quite a number of standards. And the most common is BSI IT Grundschutz. So it's basic protection. That's what every agency needs. It evaluates how they run their IT shop. And there's also a part about endpoint operating systems. This is where Igelos or maybe UD Pocket comes in. But there's no certification for products in IT Grundschutz. It certifies organizations. So the organization has to write a report to show they meet all the criteria and requirements from the standard. And in the small section that deals with endpoints, we have already ticked some of the boxes for them. But there's no paper that says Igelos is IT Grundschutz conforming, because the subject is not a product, but their IT operations organization.
Okay, so it's more related to IGEL as a company, less IGEL as a product vendor.
It's related to the customer, really, to the customer organization. If they're a federal agency, they have to conform to it. And we have documentation how to use Igelos and UMS in a compliant way. That said, there are more standards. For example, if you deal with official secrets in the army or maybe in another agency, there are certifications for cryptographic products. Say for hard disk encryption or for a VPN endpoint, usually implemented in a hardware device. And these are real certifications, but we don't have any of those because it's a very huge effort and a 2 or 3 year project to get something certified in this way. And in 2 or 3 years' time, something like Igelos would be completely obsolete. And also, while we like doing business with government, it's only a small section of our market. So we would spend a lot of effort on a very tiny market. And then we have the issue that everything is getting out of date because server-based computing in VDI is moving so fast. People want the latest Citrix workspace application all the time. And that is very, very difficult to reconcile with something that takes 2 or 3 years in certification.
Makes sense. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's move on. How did IGEL deal with security before having you? Well, I've been with IGEL for more than 6 years. A while I did it besides managing the UMS product. But even before that, I mean, the security got done because our developers are great experts, and they usually have a long list of Igelos packages that they're responsible for, and they would watch the security mailing lists and CVEs against their packages and updated them. And the coordination was done by the development team leads. And then we had some customers that either pen tested the products themselves or that paid a service provider to do that. These all also sent reports to us, and we fixed the issues. And also Igel's own quality assurance, which is traditionally not security focused, but rather stability, functionality, performance focused. They also do find security issues. So it got done, but not in an organized way with an overall process that can be documented and shown to an ISO auditor or shown to the customer. So that's the thing that we are setting up now, that we have a, a holistic security management where we know about everything that is going on in our products, and we can document everything, and we make sure things are not being forgotten. If you rely on a single developer, maybe he has a bad day and he forgets to update a package. That can happen, but we want more reliability and control. We want to use tools wherever we can, and the tools, they produce a log, and then we can document everything that we've done.
I might just ask you maybe a little personal question, but thinking back to the time where we met the first time and now, like we already did in the introduction, you weren't a security person since joining Igel. You worked for product management.
Yes, I started out as a technical writer. I wrote documentation in my first 2 years.
Okay, that's okay. I forgot that one. I just remember that you were involved.
And then I moved into product
okay.
management, and ICG was a young product at that time, and I also helped organize our closed beta testing phase. That was something that was new for Igel. And a while ago, I've been in IT for 20 years, but at some point I took a correspondence course in IT security, and I've been teaching myself ever since. And also I'm learning a lot from our engineers and from Andreas, our CISO. So I'm not a formally qualified security person. I'm just an old IT hack, and I have tried to absorb whatever I can about security. Okay, and when I was asking for a full-time security professional, I didn't necessarily have myself in mind. But that's the way it went. It's a challenge, but I accepted it, and I'm trying to do all I can to keep our products secure. Keep our customer systems and data secure.
I can just speak for the ICG, but I remember one of the first discussions how we will secure the data channel between the endpoint and the UMS, and we were all thinking of VPN connection at this time. I mean, we, not you, but we in the pre-sales, and we had this request a couple of times. And then you had a workshop or presentation, I can't remember what it was, but you spoke about the way we will secure the communication between the endpoint and the UMS server. So yeah, you have definitely a lot of knowledge in that in that area, and that's what I wanted to ask. Besides the first question, was it something where you are feeling comfortable since the beginning? I mean, are you something, I don't know, like me, who as soon as he gets something tries to fix all the breaches they have, lock down all the network ports of your firewall, or how do you do that on a private level?
On a private level, I've been using Linux for over 20 years privately, but that doesn't necessarily make everything secure, because you can have outdated Linux packages. You can have a misconfigured system. Well, I'm not doing a lot. I keep my system. I use Ubuntu and I keep it updated. I used to have Arch Linux because it teaches you a lot about the system. It doesn't have a huge layer of distribution-specific tools. It just tells you how to configure the upstream packages. So I love that. But as I had more and more to do on the job, I wanted something that would just work and let me read my emails and watch YouTube. And apart from that, I make backups. I abuse Git for that. So I have a lot of Git repository. Anything that's important to me is in a Git repository and gets synced to an internet server.
Okay, interesting.
So that's the way I do it, and I can sync it between my various laptops and other machines that way. So that's how I do it. Apart from that, I've also got a hardware FIDO token, but I haven't got down to configuring it yet. But we'll do that for security in IGEL. Well, now when I log into VPN, I use a one-time password with open OTP. And our system administrators, oh, am I allowed to tell all this? Well, the important people, they use two-factor authentication already. And now we're having a pilot how we can roll up more two-factor authentication. And it's a great step. But I don't do much more than keeping my systems up to date, making a port scan once in a while. My Fritzbox Wi-Fi router gets updated automatically, and that's it. But I don't own a smartphone privately, for example. I keep it simple. I spend so much time on the computer every day. I want a phone that just lets me send a message and make a phone call. Otherwise, I'd have another IT system to maintain. That's just too much.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I wouldn't say that I could live easily without a smartphone, because now most of everything related, like I have a question, I will open Wikipedia in a few seconds just to see what the answer is. But I was asking you after that in an upcoming question that we might face, what kind of operating system you're using. So already answered the Linux one, and then the next one of the next ones would have been what kind of not what kind of smartphone, but what kind of smartphone operating system are you using? Because that gives you sometimes a good insight about the person.
You know,
that's interesting.
I don't even know, because it's a very simple model by Nokia, which is now owned by Microsoft. But I don't really know whether it's a form of Windows or of an old Symbian that's on it. It's very simple.
If it's
and
really
it doesn't
simple,
have internet, because that excludes just a whole group of attacks that I don't need to worry about.
That's right. Okay, thank you very much, Matthias. Interesting insight.
So that's my personal computing. Okay, let's push on with the questions. What is your priority between product, security, and stability? So I had to think about this one a while. I assume you mean having the latest and greatest packages with the latest fixes, as opposed to staying on a version that's well tested and known to work. But in general, I do not think that security and stability are such opposites, because security adds stability. If you know how the program responds to unexpected input and so on, which is a security issue, it also makes it more stable and robust. Where I see a conflict is customer organizations that need a specific software version to be approved, tested and approved. Of course, that gives them some security and assurance that everything works as inspect it and they wouldn't like to touch it again. But now that almost everything is on the internet, security threats are moving so fast that you cannot do without updates. There's almost no major piece of software that doesn't have security issues discovered at some point, and then you need the update. So I'm on the update side. You can't do without the updates. Everything's moving so fast. You have to keep up. Even we're discovering things that have been sleeping in the Linux kernel or in the Wi-Fi protocols for years, and that are everywhere. And all of a sudden, someone discovers how to exploit them, and then we have to react. So I hope that's an answer to this question.
I can maybe add just a short layer on that one. I know a little bit the context of the question, so let me just add. Yes, you answered it. That's the first answer from my side. The second one is it's mostly related to the Citrix Workspace app stuff.
Okay.
Not only on that one, but I must say that the rhythm that Citrix used for delivering new Citrix Workspace app clients is pretty high at the moment. So the refresh rate is quite high, and combined that with the WebKit stuff for Teams, then different VDI subset of tools we have to implement in our operating system. Sometimes implementing Citrix Workspace app is just, let's say, one small part of what we have to deliver. We have I don't know how to say it in English, but a couple of stuff which is coming after, which has to interact with the Citrix Workspace that we have to keep updated too. And sometimes we're not only speaking about functions, we're also speaking about security, because, I don't know, Zoom or Microsoft or Cisco discovered a breach somewhere, delivered a new version, but might not be compatible with the Citrix Workspace version we are delivering through our quality and quality assurance. So
yeah.
You know my question, it's not my personal question, but the question coming from the community. Are you there saying we keep the functional and tested versions and we don't use the latest version because of that? Are you saying, hey, it's delivered by the vendor, so it has to be secure, we'll implement it? Can you answer that, or is it too
well,
complete?
I think we still offer 2 or 3 generations of the Citrix Workspace app. Yeah. So that's the sort of compromise that we're making. Apart from that, we're really very much dependent on what Citrix does. And there are people in the company that know way more about Citrix than I do. The official company line is, you can count on IGEL to have the latest Workspace app, but then we do make the compromise that we have a bit older versions as well, because people need them, because they have an older infrastructure or so. But that's a really difficult situation. You get into a real upgrade race, and you get a complicated matrix. Oh, this version needs that one, but then feature X doesn't work, and then you need Y. I don't envy these people. I wish there was some sort of, like Linux distros and Firefox do, to have a stable branch and then one that has all the latest updates, so people could set their priorities accordingly. Yeah. But they would need to tell, for example, Citrix. Yeah,
but that's a fun fact. I mean, we have a feature proposal tool, which is Node, so ids.igelcommunity.com, and there we already had a couple of persons asking for an LTSR version of Igelos and IGEL. So we are not so far from that request regarding our own products, but we are, I would say, the smallest part of that chain.
Yeah, we would need all the major VDI vendors to do the same.
Yeah.
Okay, let's push on so that we still have some time for open questions. What is the first security configuration you would achieve on Igelos? You register it with your UMS, because then you can do everything you need to do remotely. And then you set root and user passwords, but otherwise it's completely open. And then you update it with the latest security updates, and then you do the rest of your configuration. That would be my reaction. UMS first, lock it down with passwords, and update it.
Great.
Okay, we have 15 minutes for the open Q&A. Then I'll also stop sharing so that we can wait.
Yeah.
I did it wrong. So that we can have a nice conversation with people.
Conversation, of course. So we already have one question. The question and answer section coming from Markus Kachel. He is already an insider, and he asked, I guess there will be an announcement in the IGEL community when we will be able to subscribe to the new security mailing list.
Oh, yes, there will be. And I think we'll also send out a technical newsletter to customers. So we will put it on LinkedIn and so on. I would like to communicate it very widely. So that all people can learn about it.
Just if you need some help, Matthias, just come back to me, and I will be happy to help in communicating that into the community after having spoken with you.
Yes, I'll send it to you and let you do it on the IGEL community.
Awesome. I will take over. We are a little bit out of questions right now, so I will just put one or two questions that I received just after sending out the list to you. How many? I don't have the question directly in front of me, but I will try to bring it back as best as I can. How much influence do the security team have on the roadmap or on the quality and assurance? The question, I understood it this way: can you block a product or a product release because of security issues you might have identified?
I'm working on it. I would love to have more influence, but of course, IGEL as a company has many priorities, and security is high, but it's not always the highest. We have to keep things moving. We have to keep building stuff. If something's really critical or high in severity, there's no question that we fix it as soon as possible, but it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off because we're a business, and some things take precedence over, let's say, a medium or low security issue when we could use the same time to build a very important feature for a very important customer. It's not ideal, but it's the real world. You live in an organization, and I'm trying to increase awareness, and I'm trying to increase my influence. But management is listening, and our new owner is also very keen on security, because, and that's how you sell security to the business. Security reduces risk. For example, if we had a major issue and that got exploited, it would be very bad for our reputation. We might use business, and it will damage our relationship to the customers that trust us to keep their systems secure. So that's a high business risk, and that's why we are investing in security. We're hiring the Java person, and we'll also be hiring more people so we can grow the security organization. But sometimes it's a debate. I need to have many discussions, and it's also a learning process.
Yeah, we are still.
IGEL is changing, and I'm working on changing towards better security.
That's I looking forward to that. I mean, we are still this kind of company who tries to sell something. So I guess that's the reason why we are sometimes not so keen to listen to security people like you, but I absolutely get your point. Other question I received, and I guess it's not related to you as a person or you as a department, but I will ask it, maybe you have some insights from the PMs that you had on just before being security person. Is there a reason why IGEL devices aren't able to set a BIOS password? The question includes a little bit the answer, but
that
is there a reason?
That is a feature that has been requested long ago. We tried it with the tooling of a specific BIOS vendor, and there were licensing issues because we need redistribution rights. If we have these binaries that can set the BIOS, if we put them into Igelos, we need a redistribution contact, and we wouldn't get that. So it's a complete blocker. And then it had too many issues. So that's what delayed the project. We went down the wrong road with the wrong supplier.
Mm-hmm.
What we're doing now, which is not BIOS settings, but BIOS updates. There's a great open source project, the LVFS. So we're going down that road to update BIOS first, of course, on IGEL hardware, and then we'd like to widen that. But it's tricky manipulating other people's BIOS. So there's always a risk that you brick the device, and we shouldn't do that because that's really, it'll hurt business of our customers. And we're also evaluating a new partner that will let us set the BIOS password. It's a very important step in securing the device. When we have UEFI secure boot, of course, we need to lock down the BIOS. Otherwise, people can get around secure boot or boot from USB, and then we've lost. So that's something that we've been working on for a while, and we've had some bad luck and went down the wrong path, but we're trying to correct that now.
That's great. Thank you very much.
We're still dependent on the BIOS vendors, because while this LVFS gives us updates for so many vendors, usually the tools that interact with the BIOS are still vendor specific. So we have one vendor in mind that we're talking to, and maybe that can be a start. And then maybe we can convince the next vendor the same way, say, vendor X has done it. Why don't you? This will be perceived as a lack by the customers if they can do it and you can't.
Yeah, this is a bit of discussion with, I faced when I was in pre-sales and now facing in some community questions and also on the feature proposal tool where this topic is coming back quite often.
Yeah, and quite understandably.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is the background.
That's great. Thank you very much. One really hot topic. And on that point, I'm not sure if we can speak about that too deeply, but I will try to give you, after you answer mine, and check if we are compliant on that one. What are your opinion regarding antivirus on Igelos?
Okay, yeah, that's a really interesting topic. We're getting asked that a lot, and I usually say, look, the operating system is read-only, so you have no persistence if any malware should be downloaded. We do have cryptographically signed partitions, so we make sure that the firmware update you download is clean. But well, and the Linux viruses I've seen, they've attacked servers on the internet because they wanted to use them for a botnet or for spamming. And we haven't seen much malware on Linux client systems. But it depends how high your expectations are. But maybe there will come a project where we cannot get around the antivirus requirement, and then we would choose a good technology partner, as we do with other things as well. And I think we could try and integrate that. Of course, it will have a performance impact, and that's why we usually try to avoid it. So Igelos also runs good on older hardware. That's a very important selling point. We say, don't ditch that old notebook. You can use it for 2 or 3 more years using UDPocket. And if we had very intensive antivirus scanning, that would hurt performance, and then we would lose that advantage. So we still think it's not necessarily needed.
Mm-hmm.
Things may change. Then we will have to reevaluate the situation. But we haven't had a project where that has hurt us.
I'm happy that you said that, because I don't know if you can see my screen right now, but it's
yes.
the answer I'm trying to deliver to person who are asking for that. So it's a couple of months ago where I answered with that text. I guess I covered most of the points you already mentioned.
Yes.
I added some read and write cycles on the SSD DOM.
Yes.
But I must admit, at the same time, coming from the enterprise pre-sales, and it just open discussion, right? So it doesn't mean that we have to make it publicly. But I know that the request is coming quite often from enterprise customers, because they have, let's say, regulatories asking for that every system that is coming to the network has to be covered by an antivirus.
Yeah. Unless an exception is granted, and we often get the exception granted.
Yeah, exactly. So that's interesting.
But I mean, it may change, and there are more than one ways to do antivirus. We wouldn't necessarily need to do on-access scanning of all the files. We could run a scan at night when people are not working, and UMS would schedule the job and support that. So there are things that we could do,
okay,
if needed. But at present, we still are getting around this requirement. It's good for performance. It keeps the system simple. It saves some work hours that we can use on other things, but the time may come where we will need it, and then we'll see how we do it. Maybe we'll have a scan outside of working hours, and then it won't hurt performance during the day. So there's a lot of decisions to be made, and I think we could do it.
Just in case for our attendees, it's not a promise.
No, it's not a promise. We're just talking about a technical issue, and we're considering it, and we're weighing the trade-off. So
absolutely.
No, there's no plan to introduce antivirus.
Perfectly. Okay, then I would say we're almost done. I mean, we are almost on top of the hour. Doug is there. Doug, do you have some questions to share, or did we cover everything you already had?
You guys covered everything I had and a lot more, I must confess. So I do have one question though, and this is sort of, it's always a good question to end any topic with, especially something as detailed as security. And that is, if somebody wants to learn more, you mentioned, we're going to have the learning or the email list, and we'll put the stuff in the community. But in general, what should they do? What would your recommendations? One, to learn security, and two, of course, security from the IGEL side.
Whoa. Okay, general security. Look at the OWASP. I can put it into. Look at the OWASP website. They are a bit geared towards web applications, hence the name. But not only, they have such great documentation on all the things that you need to do: logging, static source code analysis, encryption, hashing, access control. It's really, really good to learn. And then if you want to get some hand-on experience, they have a couple of vulnerable applications on OWASP that you can try to hack. And a great resource is the YouTube channel by someone who goes by the handle of IPSEC. There are these hacking playground websites where you can connect to a lab, and one is called Hack the Box. I don't endorse it. There are other very good hacking playgrounds, but it just so happens that IPSEC all the machines that you can connect to freely, because you can also have a plan, and then you have better service and more choice of VMs and so on. He has a YouTube screencast of all the machines and how he cracked them. And that is so instructional. And you can also go along with it. You know, you can try a bit, and then you watch a bit of the video to have the resolution and try that out. So that's a great resource. It's very good. And also, there's so many good resources. A very good book that is awaiting its second edition, and I would advise you to wait for the second edition. That's from No Starch, the publisher No Starch, penetration testing from Georgia Weibman. That is the most accessible description of penetration testing techniques that I can think of. So if you're interested in learning something hands-on, set up a small home lab with maybe just a couple of virtual machines on your notebook. Do that. It's just a great way to learn. So that would be my immediate recommendations. OWASP, they are great. They have so much documentation. Check out the cheat sheets. If you just want to know about one little thing about passwords, check the passwords cheat sheet. That's read in 5 or 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. Check out IPSec and check out the penetration testing book. And from there on, I mean, you branch out. But these are good starting points. And then IPSec may be using a tool that you want to learn more about. And then you go look up the tool and learn more about its options. You start with Georgia's penetration testing book, and she has references if you want to know more about, say, Metasploit, mm-hmm. or more about writing your own Python scripts for security. Then you follow the reference. And also, oh yes, and that's a very good thing. There is a series of non-commercial events, and they also do them virtually at this time. It's called B-Sides. That's a community security event where you can meet like-minded people, listen to talks. They also put their talks on YouTube. Look for B-Sides talks. They have a guy that does a lot of videos. Thank you, administrator. And that should give you a lot of material to learn. So there's a lot of material out there. Find a starting point that's accessible to you, that speaks in a language that you can understand, and then you unravel all the web of the connections, and you follow up and you dig deeper into some things. So that would be my recommendation.
Just in case, Matthias, don't wonder, I'm not recopying what you are saying, but you sent it out to us, and I wanted to send it out to the attendees. So just in case.
Oh, yes. No, perfectly fine. So contact your local B-Sides people. There are several in Germany, for example, Munich, mm-hmm. and Hamburg. In Hamburg, it's called Elbsides, like on the river Elbe, and it's going to be virtual. And but they're all over. They have an international website where you can find your local branch. There are a lot of in the US and so forth.
That's great. Thank you very much, Matthias.
I love it. That's perfect answer. Perfect answer. So, and I like that you said they do videos and talks and Q&A. That's what we do. Yeah, I was like, yes. I love it. Hey, Matthias, thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think, thank you very much. In fact, in the chat, someone said a wonderful webinar. So, a great session.
Thank you. That's very nice. Thanks for having me.
It was a pleasure, thank Matthias. You very much. Hopefully we can have you back on in the future. So, Matthias, until we see you again. Well, Sebastian, you've done so much. So thank you very much, too. and I'll go ahead and give Seb the last word, and I'll fade into the background.
Honestly, no, it was just like I said, every time it's a pleasure when you can just talk and not present something or having a script to go through. So no, I really like that kind of session. So Matthias, I would like, I don't know if we could speak about that one out of the records, but you already created a couple of years ago white paper, how to secure Igelos.
Yes. And that does need an update. Yeah.
There is already a few updates, but that might be a question for an upcoming session with you.
Okay. Yeah, we could talk through the document and why we recommend these settings.
Exactly. Cool.
Okay, then we
That's
could
all
have
from
a
myself.
very specific securing Igelos session.
Is that paper still valid? I mean, there's probably new things to add to it, but if somebody consumed that paper today, would be a useful, useful.
It's still useful.
Amount of
It's
time?
definitely better than not applying it.
Okay.
Most
Good.
things still hold true, but documents should get decent updates once I get to it.
That's what you're saying about my firmware, God. It's on my to-do list. Okay, Matthias, Sebastian, thank you guys so
Bye.
much.
Thanks everybody for attending.
Enjoy your evening.
Bye.
Have a great one, guys. Until June. So it's almost June. Have a great day,
Tschüss.
weekend. Until
Bye.
we see you again. Cheers.